and would just walk off to his room. Now, he is getting better, but at first he wasn't able to connect. Because an example of this is our friends who have lived in the town of Winslow for about a decade. One of them was my best friend. And my best friend were moving away. My sister was sad because one of her best friends was also moving away. She was crying about this. And this kid came up, and he didn't know what he was doing really, but he tried to show emotion, but it came off as mocking. He came up and did this. In his mind, he probably thought that was him showing empathy towards the person, but it came off as mocking. Because that is just that's basically fake emotion. Fake emotions are also bad, so don't force emotion. Nonetheless. Now, this is because he was not shown that love and affection as a young child. He's still young enough to be shown that and steered down a little bit harder. Because I don't know about you, but I have had friends that have gone on ATVs and they have gone down the mud a little bit and they've tried going up. It's easier to go forward if you're not in the slippery mud on a slope. If you're going down a slippery mud on the slope, how hard is it to drive up that slippery mud? It's pretty hard. Now, that is another thing. We should also show that fellowship towards each other. That fellowship is how we show that love and attention to each other. We are actually told not to forsake fellowship with one another. That 20 actually told us in Hebrews 10:5. Okay. It seems that one's done. So, greetings. You know, I've always said the same, start the verse before it's not the beginning of a paragraph.
Thank you.
I'll move that down so my face isn't blocked. I just realized my face is blocked. I always have this thing that you read the verse before if you're not starting a paragraph of the Bible. So I'm actually going to start in verse 24, but the part I'm getting to is in 25. And let us consider how we may spur one another toward love and good deeds, not giving up meeting together, as some are in the habit of doing, but encouraging one another, and all the more as you see the day approaching. That is telling us that not to forsake fellowship, that we shouldn't be those Christians that just take their Bible and go,
I'm good, okay. I have Jesus right here with me. Love it.
What we should really do is be that Christian that loves being with other Christians.
Amen.
Amen. I can literally say that I love being with the people from the youth that you just saw up here. I love being with these people. And why is that? The fellowship. That love and attention that we all show each other. We may be that Proverbs 17:17 brother. We may be like that sometimes, but we still all love each other. That is what we're talking about with the fellowship. That is why we had that fellowship, though. We did. That fellowship was perfectly shown during the beginning of the world. We had that. Adam and Eve had that with God. They were able to experience Him in their fullest form because they did not know sin. But there was one problem. There was this little serpent came by, talked them into eating this fruit, which made them know both good and evil. That's bad news. Because once we knew evil, a gap was formed between us and God. Because God could not be in the presence of our sinful bodies now. That fruit changed basically our genetic structure into knowing sin. You do not grow into sin. You need to grow that bit. That is that can grow in. You taught so we cannot, we're never into sin. you were never you ought to open up to Steve. You shouldn't. Never taught. You did it anyway. Covered baby because, but it has a sin. That's right on your brain. Little, but after that sin was there, we listened to Satan, meaning that we saw him as an example at one point. And seeing him as an example, that would make that Adam and Eve saw him as a father figure. That is why we are called Satan's children. In 1 John 7 through 10. 1 John
Flip.
3.
I'll make the sounds for you. Flip.
Here we go. Okay. Dear children, do not let anyone lead you astray. The one who does what is right is righteous, just as he is righteous. The one who does what is sinful is of the devil, because the devil has been sinning from the beginning. The reason the Son of God appeared was to destroy the devil's work. No one who is born of God will continue to sin, because God's seed remains in them. They cannot go on sinning, because they have been born of God. This is how we know who the children of God and who are the children of the devil. Anyone who does not do what is right is not a God's child, nor is anyone who does not love their brother and sister. Wow. So, that says we still have that little big fingerprint. We still have that list, even of we Christians that still mess up in us. Okay, so we may show his we still has gone for the also month who has sinless has okay, let's go a little bit less. Past week.
Yeah, right.
Past day. Yesterday? No? How about last hour? How about in the past hour? No, then not. Oh, okay. No one did sinless in the past hour. And why is that? That's because we are called these children of Satan. But God, even though He saw us as children of Satan, He knows that Satan is a very bad father. Very bad. Like, he actually wants to hurt us. So, He wants to take us out of that house and bring them into His own. Now, what He did to do that, there were like multiple steps. You know, God's planning and everything. His first step was to show us how wrong we really were and what we were doing by giving us the 10 Commandments. That is like a blueprint on this is what you should not be doing. You should not be murdering. You should not be coveting. You should not be doing any of that. However, it was made as to show us do not think you can ever follow all these. Now, as I said, I've done this a lot, but another show of hands. Who has followed all the 10 Commandments? No? Okay, good? No. Well, no one has really. Except for one. One has been able to follow those 10 Commandments perfectly. He even added on to them. See, he added on to really a lot of the 10 Commandments to my memory. And that guy was called Jesus. Now, he was asked, which is the greatest commandment? And he was told, and he said, well, anyone who has hate towards his brother, murders. Anyone who has that impure thought enter into his head, he has done adultery. So, he didn't take down the 10 Commandments. He didn't no, those aren't good anymore. He's like, no, I'm raising the bar on this one. I want you to do better. So we can't really say, well, Jesus didn't want the 10 Commandments. Because I have met people that have gone, Jesus didn't want the 10 Commandments. But he did, obviously. He wanted those. He wanted to even make them better. So he followed all those perfectly. And you know what happened to him? He was slain like a perfect lamb. Because that's what he was.
There you go.
Back in the Old Testament, to cover people's sins, they had to sacrifice a pure lamb, one that had no sickness, nothing wrong with them. They had to sacrifice that to cover their sins. Now, Jesus is called the perfect lamb. I mean, that guys probably know that. He's a name, of God. That was Jesus, Lamb of God. That because and what that sacrifice, his blood covered through our imperfection, but because how do you go perfection? Our imperfection because it let ink on the paper. It was red. How did you cover red ink the best? How was something red? So his red, perfect blood went over our red pen on our paper and just covered it. Basically, I don't see anything. So that's what God does. Is like, okay, let's look at these sins. Okay, look at all this red on here, all this red marking. Jesus puts his blood on there. I can't read this.
Amen.
I don't see anything. All I see is a red piece of paper. What are you trying to say here? No, he's my son now. So that's what he did to adopt us was he basically sacrificed his one and only son, that whoever may believe in him shall not perish but have everlasting life. I throw that one in there. But that is how he did it. He sacrificed his one and only son, his lamb, and he had his blood cover us through a terrible death, to be honest. I mean, who wants to have nails through their hand and be hung up on a cross? No one wants to, but Jesus loved us enough to do it anyway. And the confusing part is, God still wanted us, even though we were the ones that messed up from the beginning. He still loved us enough to do that.
Amen.
That is the part that amazes me at the most, is that we messed it up and he still loved us enough to do this. Wow. He's great. He's great. Now, I will say this. If we are a family, now, actually, this is what I want to leave you with. To be perfectly just out there on what I want you to leave you with. Is that if you act like a family, a functional family, not just a family, but functional, then the world will know who you are and what you are different. As our own key in ours, I would call it key and verse.
Okay.
That's I thought that. But I'm not sure. But that is our key verse. That is our key point. Is that we need to be like that. We need to act as a family so they know who we are and what we have different. That we actually have blood covering our red ink. That is what our God did for us. Now, we're gonna have a little time here, and where my pastor and youth leader are gonna be here to talk to pray with you, basically, for if you need something, if you feel you need something, you could either handle this in your seat or you could come forward and ask them for a little bit of, nudge and help. But that is what I'll close with, and I'll actually close with a prayer, Well, dear God, thank you for this day. Thank you for the people I've met here. And actually,